Who's in the best shape of their lives? We're about to find out with the start of spring training just days away. For the Braves, that means that all the talk about the biggest question with this roster, who will replace Dansby Swanson, goes from hot stove fodder to the here and now. You're watching BPTV, Cory McCartney and Grant McAuley with you as always. And Grant, barring another candidate swooping in, all eyeballs are going to be on Vaughn Grissom and Orlando Arcia.
Yeah, and you're right. This story has been simmering on the hot stove all winter long once we discovered that the Cubs had decided to sign Dansby Swanson. So that's no longer on the menu for the Braves, but they are going to have to serve up something at shortstop. And they feel like that Ron Washington has been cooking up something pretty nice. And I'm going to run out of these puns down in New Orleans over the course of the winter, because that's where Vaughn Grissom has been not once, not twice, but 3 different times working to get himself really ready for spring training. And if you judge the conversations we had with Vaughn Grissom, with Ron Washington, the video that we saw MLB Network come out with a week or two ago, I think there's a lot of, I'd say more than cautious optimism about what Vaughn Grissom brings to the table. But as Brian Snitker pointed out at FanFest, you got to go out there and play the games. That's when the Braves are truly going to find out what they got.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Grissom went down and worked with Washington this winter in New Orleans, and the reviews were glowing. You had a chance to catch up with Wash at Braves Fest. Grissom obviously detailed what he specifically went into, and we had a chance to catch up with him. And I think it really just boils down to one thing. Is he ready? I mean, obviously he got off to that fantastic start at the plate last year, had a 956 OPS through 26 games when he was playing second base, but he faded down the stretch, a 61 weighted run created plus against righties over the last month. We know that the energy, the enthusiasm are there with Grissom. Those are all very real. We saw that up and close and personal with him at Braves Fest. He talked about this offseason, looking forward to establishing himself as the man at shortstop. But who knows how much, the playing time last year of being a second base really impacted what we saw out of him as he struggled down the stretch of the plate. So I think the question with him is he ready? And with Arcia, I think you know what you're getting. The guy's got over 4,000 innings at shortstop in his career. But when we're talking about Grissom struggling against righties, Orlando's better against him. He has a 119 weighted run created plus against versus lefties with 70 a year ago. So Grissom has a whopping 61% above league average weighted run created plus against lefties this past season. So I don't know if I'm maybe talking myself into a platoon situation here, but I can't see Grissom in Atlanta if he's not going to be either the guy or getting consistent playing time.
Yeah, and that I think is an important takeaway. If for whatever reason you decide that the time is not quite now, I do feel like he needs to play every day, because if he is going to get to that point, and keeping in mind he's going to go into his age 22 season, there is time for development. That's not what anybody wants to hear right now, and that's not what I'm focusing on right now, but he does need to play every day, regardless of if it's in Atlanta or out in the metro area over at Gwinnett. But putting that to the side and kind of unpacking a lot of the other things, I'd be a little bit surprised to see a platoon. I'm not saying that Orlando Arcia couldn't draw a few starts here and there, and I think there will be some growing pains and highs and lows throughout the course of the season for Vaughn Grissom. But again, the everyday play, regular play throughout the course of the week is going to be important for him. If he's, starting 5 out of every 6 or 7 games, and you're using Orlando Arcia as you need to just to kind of keep him sharp, or if you find a matchup that you really like, then I think that that's probably the way that you could expect to see this duo handling shortstop over the course of the season. But I'd be surprised about a platoon situation. And to go back to Orlando Arcia, we do know what we have there. And what we have there is a guy that I think is a capable shortstop, but nothing spectacular, nothing flashy. There is no extra gear. Whereas with Grissom, I do think that there's a lot of optimism that this is a player who could come into his own, but there just might be some growing pains along the way to establishing himself, much like there was for Dansby Swanson. Hopefully, it won't take Vaughn Grissom quite as long to offensively get his footing at the big league level, but a lot of the focus seems to be, can this guy play shortstop every single day? And that's what the Braves have to find out.
So who ends up taking the field on opening day on March 30th against the Nationals at National Park is really the debate here. So where does that go in your mind? Is it Arcia? Is it Grissom? Is there a surprise contender that swings in like your friendly neighborhood shortstop?
Yeah, I think that the only way that something would change is if the Braves get through spring training, maybe one of these veterans like an Elvis Andrus goes unsigned, and you just haven't seen enough in the spring to feel confident about that position. And perhaps the price, the deal is right at that point, because Elvis Andrus or whoever, maybe that's just an example, would like to play baseball in 2023 and not sit out past opening day. But once you do get to that point, I mean, I'm feeling like that's the, last 10 days, maybe week of spring training. then that player's got to have the opportunity to get themselves ready for opening day. So you have all kinds of different questions and variables that welcomes in. So the best case scenario, of course, is that Vaughn Grissom comes in, shows out in spring training, and earns that job, that opportunity, and continues to earn it each and every day throughout the course of the season. And I liked one thing that Vaughn Grissom said, because we talked a lot about the Braves' young players last year. You had the 1 and 2 Rookie of the Year candidates, and Michael Harris winning it, Spencer Strider the runner-up, but the other young player in the trio was, of course, Vaughn Grissom. And he talked about seeing Michael Harris excel at the big league level, seeing Michael do what he does, lets him know that, hey, I can do that too, because he's been able to play with Michael Harris at multiple different levels. So it's almost like these guys can feed off each other a little bit. And perhaps the big league time he got last year is kind of an orientation, and seeing his friend really, balling out, if you will, in center field, as they like to say. I think Vaughn Grissom's going to have the confidence necessary and some experience under his belt to come in and not feel like, hey, everything is brand new and I got to prove myself for the very first time. I think he's already a little bit down the road, if that all makes sense.
Look, and whether we look back at 2023 and it's Arcia or Grissom that ends up with the most playing time, or this does become a more traditional platoon, which I don't think is going to happen. I just think there's been too much focus put on Grissom's work with Washington this winter in the wake of Swanson going to the Cubs. I think it has to be Grissom. I think the optics of saying your shortstop for the future isn't ready for opening day on a World Series contender just doesn't work for me. I think he's going to be running out there for the position on opening day. I think Vaughn Grissom is going to be your guy, whether that changes as the years goes on. But come opening day, I think it's going to be Vaughn Grissom. Yeah,
I agree with that. In my conversation with Ron Washington, the one thing that he said that he saw that really impressed him about Vaughn Grissom is growth. And he said that, look, it hasn't come overnight. It wasn't easy for guys like Elvis Andrus and Marcus Semien and Miguel Tejada and a number of other shortstops that Ron Washington has worked with over the course of his long coaching and managerial career. But he also said, we're going to have to be a little bit patient with this guy because he is growing and coming into his own here at this position. And he was out of position last year. A lot of people may think, oh, well, he can just play second base, throw him over there, he's fine. That was out of necessity. And then while there might have been some questions about whether Vaughn Grissom was ready to come up and play shortstop every day, you got to put those off to the side, because that assignment is now what is sitting on his desk. And that's the one that he's very excited to get to work on down in spring training. And that work is going to happen very soon.
Well, this is one of the biggest, but it's far from the only storyline as we run through spring training. So be sure to stick with us here on BPTV. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell a friend. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley, and we'll see you soon, Braves Country.